experimenting. You're all my test subjects, I'm afraid. I'm not having any slides. I normally have a few slides. I'm going to live code everything. So my name's Layla. It's me. It's a good likeness. I've been blonde. I've had multicolored hair, so I like to try and associate the name with the new darker look. I am a Microsoft MVP, GitHub star. I founded the Women of .NET initiative, and I used to sit on the board of directors at the .NET Foundation for my sins. I currently work at VMware as a developer advocate, and you can catch me on the interweb as Layla Codes are everywhere but GitHub. Who matches their GitHub to their anything else? Anybody? No. Yeah, I didn't think so. Bill, you have to you're the exception. Your real name everywhere. Alrighty. So, Lebo asked me a very good question this morning. This session is called Basics for Experts. Now, why is it called that? Well, I was a little bit reticent to come over to the new way of doing things in .NET 6. I was like, ew, I'm not sure. But I didn't want to start from scratch, and a lot of things start from scratch, or maybe you're coming from a different programming language. So you have a lot of knowledge, and you want to know how to do all the things that you normally do in .NET 6. So this is kind of like a transfer of skills over. I hope you can all see the code at the back. I did go down and do like a quick check. So just holler if you need it bigger, and that is a word, I swear. So this talk is going to go into as much as I can about how to build good quality ASP.NET applications with the new stuff. Okay. If I mess up anything, I can see several super duper experts that make me look like a little toddler in my knowledge in this room. So if I mess up anything, they're gonna jump in and save the day. Okay. So we're gonna have a look at top level statements, minimal hosting model. I'll explain all of those, global using directives, DI and IOC, minimal APIs, HTTP clients and HTTP client factories, resiliency, and maybe some other stuff. I usually do Eureka, but I haven't got service discovery set up on Docker here or anything like that. And we probably won't have time because I've got 45 minutes and I'm quite a slow talker and I need to breathe. Okay, so I'm trying to speak quickly and I'm not very good at speaking quickly. So that's enough about the introduction. We are going to go and take a look at everything. So first thing I'm going to do is take you back in time to .NET 5, because I think you need to know where we were to see where we're coming to. And if you've done .NET 5 or any of the predecessors in .NET Core, you're probably familiar that we have this program. And it doesn't really do much. I think when you start the template, you kind of ignore this. You may do some stuff in it, but generally, I know like a lot of people just ignore this file. It doesn't exist. And then we go over to the startup. And once we get past the epic amount of usings, even the duplications, oh no, they're not duplications, that's okay. We get down into some configuration. We've got our iService collection happening in here. That's our IOC and version of control container where we put all our dependencies. So you can see this is just the straight up .NET 5 template. So we have controllers. We have a little bit of Swagger to help us navigate and explore our APIs. And then down here, we have our app where we can put middleware and do all the other stuff that we need to do on our app. I'm going to draw your attention to some things. I already have drawn your attention to the epic amount of using statements, these indentations everywhere. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and that we've got this program file over here, not really doing much. It's saying, hey, go and use the startup. This line here on 23 is saying, go check out startup, go over there. So this is kind of defunct. I mean, I know it's not, but it kind of is. So let's go over to .NET 6. Now, this is more or less the template and I've added some stuff to it to help demonstrate different things today. You'll notice that up here there's mainly my own namespace usings. We don't have, oh, wrong number of fingers there. All of, where are we? This way, here. We don't have all of these. And I'm going to show you why we don't have any of that. And that's because if I go into the CS proj, and I come to this line 6, we've got implicit usings, and that's enabled. And what that means is that out of the box, a lot of the very common libraries that you're going to want to use, like all the systems, are just there in the background, ready for you to go, which means I don't have to have them all here. So that is the first big difference, is that you'll come in and you won't have anything here. You'll come into your application, your template, and it will just start with this builder. And you'll be like, oh, where's system? Where is everything? But it's there, lurking in the background. I'm going to show you some more with that in a moment. I just want to give you a little tour of the new program. And then you'll notice that we go straight into builder down here. We don't have program, we don't have main. You may be wondering, wait, where is all of that? Well, that was all made static, so now we can just get straight into the application. We've removed a lot of the ceremony, and now this is what the top-level statement part of it is. If you've heard that talk of top-level statements, this is kind of where we are, right here, without all the ceremony, without the main and the program and all getting in there. We can just go straight into it. And where this sort of came from is if you've done Node Express.js kind of development, it kind of looks like this. And we'll see more of it as we go down. It looks more and more like JavaScript and Node. Now, you won't have this in the template. This is how one adds configuration. Everything is off this builder. And this is the minimal hosting pattern coming in. So we can just grab this web application. We're building it, or we're creating a builder that we're going to add everything to, and that's configuration. And this is really configurable. So we can say, go use our app settings. We can tell it to go use environment variables, user secrets, they're still in there, and command line arguments. So everything is there. You just need what you want, and then you can pop that in. I'm going to ask Bill maybe later if he knows whether I need to build this or not. I can't figure out whether I need to build it here or later. I've tried, and I can't quite figure it out from the docs. So we can talk later on that. And then just as we saw over here in our startup, in our configure services, we're now just tacking that straight on to our builder.services, which is still our iService collection, and we're adding everything in here. And then if we come down here, I've got a nice service ready, created. I'll go into that in a minute. Oh, this is left over from my testing. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. Close your eyes. Avert them. Avert them. Go away. Be gone. Wake up, keyboard. Thank you. And then we come down here, and we can see that we have now built our builder. And this here is a web application. So we've got that ready to go. And then, as we sort of did over here in our configure section, we start adding the middleware and all of that. And we've got our controllers. And then down here, when you do a template and you put, let me just show you how you would get the minimal if you were using the CLI. You would come in here and you would go, let me just clear this, .NET new web API, and then you have to give it the keyword minimal. Otherwise, you get a traditional web API still, top-level statement minimal, hosting model, but you get controllers and you won't get minimal APIs. So that's how you would get it if you wanted to have the minimal APIs. If you're using an IDE, that should be .NET, not TNET. That's a new alias for .NET there. You wouldn't get the, if you do it in the IDE, you can just select minimal. On Visual Studio, there's a little checkbox that you either deselect or select to get minimal APIs in there. And now these really look like Express.js, I think. And you've got these in here. You can declare your sort of endpoint. And then we'll go into what's happening in this when I come back to cover more of the minimal API side. But you can see we've got an anonymous function in here where we're going to do some stuff. So that's kind of a whirlwind tour of the program. Let's go and have a look at this bit first. And we can get rid of that. We don't have to have just the implicit usings. We can go and make our own usings. And the best way, I think, is to be quite explicit with your naming. I've heard people name them different things, but I like to be descriptive. So we're going to call this global usings.cs, okay? And I'm going to grab these guys over here, or these inanimate objects, and save that, come back over, and I'm going to drop them in here. Now, my code's going to be angry. If this was Visual Studio or Rider or something, there would be squiggles galore, but code doesn't like me, so it's like, figure it out yourself. So we have to put a keyword in here, global. And as soon as I do that, the compiler now knows that I want these to be globally scoped. If I can do this, if I was in an IDE, I could probably do Alt and paste them all in one go. Now, they are available for my entire application, but they are global. So if you don't want something completely globally scoped, don't stick it in here. You can still, if I want to take this system.json out because I'm only going to use it in my program, I can take it back out and I can stick it here. So you can do either or. If you've got something that you want to be global, pop it in global usings and free up some of the top space of your file, because I'm sure we've all gone into a CS file and you've had to scroll past all the usings, the 30, 40 usings, and you keep scrolling and keep scrolling. There's some other really nice things that we can look at that make the usability of your code much nicer for reading. So that was the first one. Yeah. So the question was, do I need to link the global usings back into my program? No. It just picks them up because of the global keyword. And I can name that file anything. It could be bob.cs. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that when it goes through and checks all my code and reads it all, it's like, oh, OK, these are global. Everything can have that. So you don't need to do anything more than stick the global keyword in front of it. So let us go and have a look at something else. Now, I created some nice services in here. And if we go and have a look, and I go into, let's check this one out. And I come up here. Another nice feature, I should possibly consider making my system.text.json global because it's used here as well, but I'm going to ignore that. Now, again, we've got more indentations. We have file scoped namespaces now. So I can do this. I can go down here and get that. And now I should be able to, I don't know all the shortcuts in code. But if I do Shift-Tab, that now is yet another little bit of code readability that I can have. I don't have to have, if I've got a big file, I don't have to now have those braces for the namespace around my entire code block. I can just put the semicolon on the end, and now this is a namespace scoped file. You can still do multiple namespaces per file, but you do it with the braces, okay? If that's the way you want to structure it, you can still do that. But if you just have the one namespace, like so many of us do, you just put the semicolon there, and you are good to go for the whole thing. And it's just a nice little readability thing. We don't have yet another unnecessary indent. Okay, so that is just some nice usability features that have come in. All right, So next up, I'm just going to check my list, is let's have a little talk about dependency injection. For quite a long time, we have had dependency injection out of the box in .NET Core. If you're unfamiliar with dependency injection, it is a way of inverting the control of your application. So you can take out those dependencies, decouple your classes, your code, to make things more testable, more manageable, and just better designed. So in this case, we're going to be using dependency injection. That isn't the only way of decoupling and inverting control, but that's what comes out the box here. We use constructor injection as well. So to add something to the IOC container, you can add it as a singleton. You can add it as a scoped, or you can add it as transient. If we have time at the end, which we probably won't because I won't talk quick enough, I can go a little bit more through the life cycles. But I'm going to add a singleton for sake of argument here. And what that means is just how your application deals with the life cycle of that service. Does it keep it awake and alive for the entirety of your application, or does it dispose of it as you use it? Is it creating new instances of it or whatever? So that's what we're doing when we choose singleton, scoped, or transient. Now, there are several ways that I can add a service. I have an implementation of an interface here. Is that big enough for everyone at the back? Yep. Okay. So I have iWaffle creation service. I'm big into food examples, so excuse that. And I have an implementation, a concrete implementation of iWaffle creation service. So what this one is doing, saying, when I ask for iWaffle creation, give me waffle creation. I have another one. So this could be another if I wanted to swap it out. And if I was requiring all over my application an implementation of iWaffle creation, I don't have to go through every single code file and see where I was adding that. I've done it just by that one line of code. I've changed the implementation I've been using across my entire code base. So it makes it much easier to maintain. But we're going to stick with this one. Now, I could do a concrete implementation as well. I could do build.services.add singleton, and I could just add what do I have? Waffle ingredients service. That might not have the S in there. Shall I have a quick look? Services, waffle ingredient service, because that makes more sense. And where have I've lost it? Ingredient service. Okay, now this does not have an interface, so I can give it the concrete implementation. There are other ways that you can add things into this. You may see var service equals new ingredient, waffle ingredient service. Let me just do this. You may see something like this for some reason, and you may see someone add, if I take that out, service like that. Be wary of doing that, because you have now taken the control of that life cycle away from your IOC container, okay? Because this was newed up somewhere else, it was newed up on line 24, now if that had connections that needed to be disposed of or something like that, that's not going to be handled by your IOC container. So be wary of that. If you do need to create something like that, you can get your context and you can do it like that, you can add it like that. You can do, there's an add set. I'm not going to go into this because I won't do it as well as my fellow MVP, Steve Collins. I strongly recommend, if you want to know more about iDispose in dependency injection, check out stevetalkscode.co.uk. He has a wonderful series of blogs all on iDisposable on dependency injection. So he will go into that. But I just wanted to point out that you don't want to just add things willy-nilly like that, okay? That was probably a really British thing to say, willy-nilly, okay? Just ad hoc. You don't want to be adding those. You want to be careful. So we've got several different ways that we can add those. But imagine you've got loads and loads of services. This program file is going to get unmanageable. And this is something I hear time and time again about this sort of minimal hosting pattern and top-level statements. Is like, well, I don't really want to have all of my services in the program file. Well, that's why we can extend iService collection and tidy things up. So let's have a quick look at how we do that. Now, I've created my extensions already because I'm not very good at typing. And you really don't need me to tap, tap, tap away. So let's go and have a look at one I created earlier. Again, I can get rid of these curly braces, but we'll ignore those now. Now, I call this iService collection extensions, and I'm playing around with the naming of this. I've made this a partial because I may have lots of partial iService collection extensions. That's just something I'm trying. This could be partial. It doesn't need to be partial. It could be add iService collection dependencies. It could be add Bob. It doesn't matter what you call it. I'm just going to group all of my extensions for iService collection together in multiple partials, but separate them into files. So that's a little bit of architecture I am testing. Now, to extend something, they need to be static. You need to return it, and then you need this keyword here. So I am passing in my iService collection, and this is meaning I'm going to extend the one that we've got over here, okay, this one that we've got. So we do that, and now I'm going to come, I deleted them all, didn't I? I'm going to have to write them again. So come back over here, and rather than builder, we've got services.add singleton. And I'm going to bring in that iWaffle. Thank you. Oh, no. Now I'm not going to get any IntelliSense. There we go. Tab. We want that to be waffle creation service. And I also need that waffle ingredient, so we can bring services.add singleton of waffle ingredient over and bring those in here. And then to use those, we can go and just grab this method here. We can come back over into our program, and just to make everything nice and tidy, we can go builder.services. And now the extension we've just written, and we can encapsulate all of our dependencies in here. You could create another one for third-party dependencies if you wanted to get all of these out. I've thought about lumping them all in with the add dependencies, but I think it's nice to keep your the ones that you write and the third-party services apart. But this is all preference. Decide how you want to structure and abstract all your code away. But this is much nicer than having all of our services just lumped in there together. If you want, oh, there you go. See, I've got my CTX new marketing stuff. I've added it in there. You can see how we add that. CTX is context. I don't have time to go through what I'm doing in there, but you can always come up and ask me afterwards. If you want to add things like databases, you have a custom one for that. Can I F12 encode? No, that would be too helpful. So if we go over to databases, you can see that we have on the iService collection an add DB context, and then you can pass in your context. And then you've got loads of different adapters for whatever database you're using. So I'm using SQL Server here, so I can pass that in. I'm also passing in my iConfiguration config because I want to get my connection string from my app settings. So up here you can see we've passed in nothing. This one, remember you don't have to pass in the iService collection because we've got the this keyword, but in the database case, I'm asking for the config as well, so I do need to pass builder.configuration from up here. So I've passed that in. Okay, so we've done a lot there. We'll swing back around. Let's go down and have a look at the minimal API down here. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. So what we have here is a map.get, and we have the endpoint that we specified. And we have, this happens to be asynchronous, so we've got the async keyword here. And then I'm asking for an implementation of my iService, my iWaffle creation service. So when I create this and I run that bit of code, I am going to get the Waffle creation service. And that can just go straight into this function here. And it's available for me to use. The dependency injection can handle all of that. So just because you use minimal APIs doesn't mean that you can't use the features like dependency injection as well. You can also use controllers too. I have controllers in this application, so you can mix them up. I don't know why, but you might want to mix minimal ones and have full controllers as well. So just know that you can if you have a use case for it. And then you can do whatever you need to do in here. Again, if you've got loads and loads and loads of API endpoints in here, your program is going to get really long and maintaining it's going to be messy. So you may want to group them, and just like we did for the iService collection, we can do an extension for the web application. So if we come up here, I've called this one Add APIs Async to be descriptive. And you can see it's very similar. This one is a static async because that's what we need it to be. And again, it's going to be a task because we're using async. And I'm just passing in this. And you can see I can move my API endpoint in here. I could structure those any way I want. Now, I just want to draw your attention to this link here. All this code is available on my GitHub, which I can give you at the end, but it's Layla-P. If you are just doing CRUD and you have a whole load of data entities and you want to create an endpoint for each entity to create, read, update, and delete, if you go and see C# Fritz, that's Jeff Fritz's GitHub account, he has written a new Git package called Instant APIs. And what that will do, it will pass through all of your entities. So for example, if I go into my entities here, and actually I want to go into my data, and I have where's my DB context? It will start to look through all of this, and it will go and see all of your models. It will go off and have a look, and it will create an endpoint for creating, reading, updating, and delete for each entity. So if you are just creating some kind of data access API, it will whiz through and do it all for you. So that's pretty cool, and you can go check that out. Did I close the wrong thing? I probably did. So let us go and reopen this one. So just like before, we have all of that. Now, if you want to go ahead and do a different HTTP verb on this. I won't get into too much detail on the minimal APIs because Purnima has a fantastic talk on it, and you can go and find a video of Purnima's talk on that. So you can go here and go map.post, and you can reuse this because it's a get and a post. And we can copy that and have that endpoint, and then we can have our expression. And our expression. Thank you, keyboard. Now, I probably want to do something with waffle creation, so I'm going to inject that. And I'll need the async as well in a moment, but let me just do one thing at a time. So if I go async. But what if I'm posting, do you think I probably have something on the body of my request? Probably do, don't I? And you might, well, how do I do all of that? Well, just like you would normally on a controller. I know we've kind of munged it all together, but I can go and use my from body decorator, and then I can go in here and say, well, yeah, give me an order or whatever that model is going to be. And it will do the binding. If you have a custom serializer for your JSON on your model for that, it will handle all of that. And this will pluck from the body of the request the JSON or whatever and map it, just as it would in your normal controller. So you can still use those decorators in there to make your code manageable. And so there's still no real need to go over and use a big controller. Now, at the moment, there are probably reasons why you want to go and use a controller. Maybe you want to handle more identity and things with that. I feel the minimal APIs are going to be sitting inside a bigger system, and you probably have some kind of gateway monitoring all of that. So, you know, if you need to secure it, you probably want to go over and use more of a traditional controller and things like that if you need to do more. But if you're doing this type of thing, you can stay happily in the minimal APIs and keep it nice and lightweight. Everything that you want is like is it headers you can get in here, all the puts, whatever you want, they're all there. All those verbs are available on app. On your web application. So let's save that. And if I come down here, we've already got that, so I'm just going to get rid of it. And then to save you some time watching me type, there you go. So we just put the await there because remember it's an awaitable, it's async, and we can just put the await in there. Cool. So let me do a time check. Okay, 10 minutes roughly. Right, now, if you are doing requests, you probably want to be resilient because we want to have nice resilient applications that fail nicely and have retries and things like that. So if I go back into this dependencies, you can see I have this add singleton waffle ingredient. Now, if I go and look, that should be waffle ingredients service. If I go and check that out in my services, well, this is actually looking for an HTTP client. So we could really do with adding that. And we could just add it in here, but I'm actually going to remove this and put it into yet another extension. So I've got one here, clients and policies. I can keep my non-HTTP services in one, and then I can come over here and add in my clients and policies. So if you just need, as we had that, you want to inject an HTTP client into your service, you need to add it like so. And that will just give you a client. Rather than going var client equals new HTTP client or putting it in a using or whatever, you can do it like this. And what this does behind the scenes is use the HTTP client factory, which you may have heard of, which manages all your pool of clients, which does all the disposing, reuse, and everything like that. So try and use this. Try not to use it new if you've got a lot of traffic. and you're newing up loads of clients, you could have problems with getting rid of them, socket exhaustion, all of these things. And you don't have to do it. You can use this, and the HTTP Client Factory will do it for you. Now, if you want to be a little bit more descriptive, this is kind of an anonymous one. You could go in here and you could set up a base address or something, but you could name it. There's several types. So if we go services.add HTTP client, if I could spell, it would be so much better. And then in here, I'm going to give this a name. So let's come down. This one's going to be my client. That's such an awesome name, isn't it? And here we can come and set some stuff up. I could do client, and then we can go here. And then if you had lots of things that you wanted to set up, just as you would in where you're using it, if you went var client equals new client, and you want to do, I don't know, client.base address equals new URI, whatever it is, HTTP, blah, blah, blah. You can do that. You can add your headers. You can set everything up in here that you need to. And then to use this, you would inject the HTTP client and request a new client. But I want to get down here to the named one. And because we have in that waffle ingredient service, I'm requesting an HTTP client, I can make that into a name, like a strongly typed. Sorry, this one is a named one, which is a stringy name. But we can have a strongly typed HTTP client, which is what we have down here. So rather than doing add singleton of type waffle ingredient service, I can add it as an HTTP client and get it managed for me. And something else I can do with HTTP clients added here is I can put on a policy. I'm using Poly. I think that's the best kind of service for using for all your policies on circuit breakers, HTTP retry. If you are unfamiliar with circuit breaker pattern, I can show you a quick picture, might help, because I'm going to show you that in action. Circuit breaker pattern is, it's closed is good. Okay, open is bad. It's always a little bit confusing, but think of an electrical circuit. You want it closed, you want the electricity flowing around, not leaking out and electrocuting everyone. So if you have it closed and you reach a failure threshold, which we can set, it flips open that circuit breaker. And it's like, hey, this service over here is doing something wrong. It's having a little hissy fit. Let's not send any more requests to it. So it then waits. And maybe you've restarted this app. Maybe there's new instances created, whatever you have set up for management of that service. Then the half open stage comes along, and the circuit breaker will be like, well, let me just throw one request over there and see what happens. And either the service will go, no, I still don't know what to do with it, so we open the circuit fully again, or it'd be like, yeah, okay, I think I'm ready to process your requests again, and it closes and service resumes as normal. And that sounds quite complicated to program, but it really isn't. It's because Poly does it all for you. So down here, I have several different policies. I have a retry policy, so that tells you how many times you have to try your HTTP request again if it fails. And I have a fallback where you could say, well, if it doesn't go through, go and do this instead. And then I have a circuit breaker. And I can add all of those together in a policy handler, and I can wrap all of those together. Do you see? I've got a wrap them all. So I add the policy handler, which is a wrap of them all. So we've got the fallback, the retry, and the circuit breaker all in there together. And I just quickly want to show you this in action, and I've actually got a little API for the ingredient service running in the background, and I'm also just going to, so that is running here, and this has a built-in failure. It fails 50% of the time. And if I go into, I'm going to just run this app from in here. I've probably broken it now because look at it, it's yelling at me. Oh, I didn't add that. Let's just, I need the using for that, so I'm just going to delete it. And I probably need to come in here and actually add those policies. That's really small, apologies. Let me go back into code. So what I want to do is, just like we did before, grab this, come back into program. And we can go back up to here, and we're going to do, have I got it already? Yes. All right, so now that's ready to go. I'm going to run it from in here because I was having problems with code running things. There we go. And this is what you get with Swagger. When you start an application, you get an Explorer. This one here is the controller I have in there, and this one, which is off the project name, is the minimal APIs. So we can open that, and we can try it out. And you can see, well, that was a success. We get some waffle toppings back. If we go and look in here, I want to see, it is debugging. Where is, go away. Oh, no, that's not it. That's the wrong one. If I go down and open up the ingredients, oh, that's what we looked at. I wanted to bring up the console. Can give me the thingy. There we go. Okay, so we got a response is okay. And if I try this again, let's see if we can make it error. Oh, no, don't do that. So we got that, and I'm going to keep hitting it. Right, now where it's loading, that's it retrying, and it got it. We might hit the magic in a moment. Trying to watch what's going on with the API at the bottom. I think it's retrying. Each time it retries, it gets a little bit longer. Sometimes I hit the jackpot. I should change the API so it does it most of the time it fails. We might get it this time. No! So you can see my retry is going, it keeps trying, and my threshold for the circuit breaker to kick in is 3. So if it fails 3 times, the circuit breaker is going to open. Did we get it? Yes. Okay, so we haven't got the failover thing happening in here, but if I go up into here, you can see circuit breaker and broken circuit exception. So we got that circuit breaker, it opened. And if we come back into the code, I can quickly show you, because I'm going to get shouted at in a minute, and I go down here, we can see on the circuit breaker, here is 3 retries. I want you to wait for a minute before you try it, and then we can log on break, on reset, on half. Those are methods down here that you could put into your logging. I've just got them right into the console line. So you can really configure this really well. There's a lot of content on docs.microsoft or microsoft.docs. Microsoft Docs, I'll just say that rather than URL. Go and check it out. There's loads of things on how to do policies. There's some really nice blogs on policies on the Twilio blog as well, on different states. I think there's a 3-parter on there, which is really nice with good explanations. So you can go through that. And I have 1 minute. So what I hope to have shown you there is a whirlwind through how to organize your applications so that you don't have a huge, big load of code in your program. that I've hoped that you can see that it's quite nice to use these new features where your code just is nicer to work with, more manageable, less ceremony. Everything about this is less ceremony. There's not all these braces everywhere. There's not all these startup files and programs. You just get straight into the code. You may choose not to use this pattern for really big applications. You may want to use the other way, the non-minimal hosting and top-level statement patterns that we see in .NET 5 and older. You can still totally do this. You can have a startup in a program. You just do it as before. But I hope that you find, well, actually for the project I'm doing, this lighter weight, less ceremonial approach is good. It's nice and maintainable. You can abstract all your stuff out, keep it well organized, have a go at writing nice, maintainable, testable code with your dependency injection, with your policies in there, that your code is better managed. And yeah, I'm at time. So you can come and grab me and ask me more, because that was a lot of information to pass on to you. And then just if I come down to, not in here, I'll just reopen this just so you can get all of my links, which are there. So GitHub is github.com/Layla-P, Layla-P. And then I'm on Twitter, where you can message me on Layla CodeZip. You can find me on layla.dev as well. I'm on the interweb in lots of places. And so, yeah, thank you for coming along and listening to me talk 10 to the dozen. So, thank you.